Welcome to the Pod Pod Cvlt Cast, where we talk about life, love, learning, and libido, and share our journey through polyamory. I'm Hannah.
I'm Max.
I'm Chasten.
And I'm Eric.
How often do you identify or engage in comforting activities or objects or people or relationships, places, and seek them out, like actively participate in them? And what are those comforting activities for you?
The through current on all of these things for me is going to be that I don't engage in self-care if we're identifying self-care as proactive. Mm-hmm. And it's not just self-care, but most aspects of my life and personality are reactive, not proactive. Mm-hmm. And so when we talk about comforting activities, it's reactive to being discomforted.
Right.
Or punching the dopamine button.
Right. This is a podcast where we talk about love and relationships, sex and kink, and polyam issues, and whatever else comes up. While we talk about those things, we'll probably also touch on stuff like abuse and violence and mental health challenges. These can be difficult topics, so keep that in mind moving ahead. Okay, so let's talk about that for just a second, because there's been a wellness movement in this country. And I feel like the wellness movement was born out of the fact that healthcare is not very affordable and it's too expensive to go to the doctor, even if you have insurance with the deductibles and the co-pays and all that jazz. So I feel like there has been this huge movement towards taking care of yourself. So self-care has become a buzzword, all of that stuff. But it's very, very geared towards female identifying persons in society. The self-care monthly subscription boxes, all of them. It's all crystals and candles and bath bombs. And it's always talk about ice cream and, watching your favorite movies and stuff.
What's feminine about that?
No, nothing. But I'm saying it's
I'm playing with you. I know what you mean.
It's very like the pink tax. It's all very the pink tax. It's all very like we made it.
That's
yeah.
Not that I need to tell you this, but like that's toxic masculinity shit because like dudes aren't supposed to do self-care.
Well,
dudes aren't supposed to do things for themselves in that kind of way.
Well,
unless it's drinking beer, and watching football.
I found that there just aren't models for male or masculine self-care. Right. And in my experience, women, and when I say women, I mean anybody who identifies as a woman, women tend to be social comforters. When they need comfort, they seek others out to talk through things. Mm-hmm. Men are escapist comforters. Men tend to go play golf, go play video games. I had, clients who would go see a sex worker, i.e. me. So escapist activities where you're getting away from people, you're getting away from the family, you're getting away from the source, whereas women try to fix the source. And I think that's a really interesting thing. And it comes from the fact that men have more cortisol in their bodies actively. So they have more of the stress chemicals that, process and release more easily. And women have more oxytocin that releases more easily.
And we have, as dudes, we have pop culture models for that.
Right.
The like, fuck it, I'm going fishing. Fuck it, I'm going to the bar. Fuck it, I'm going golfing. Like,
right. But that's the only model.
Pop culture model that we have is that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you, in terms of emotional well-being, and, I like to think of it as keeping yourself off the therapist couch, what are things that you wish you did more of to take care of yourselves emotionally as men?
I don't know. I think if I did what I did just more, like getting on the bike and going as hard as I can for a couple hours is very rewarding. Not just, health-wise, but in the head.
Yeah.
I do enjoy my meditative approach to playing video games where I'll be playing the game, but it's just playing and I'm actually just off in my head somewhere else thinking about other things. I think that's very useful. But it's, more of the same, I think is fine. There just aren't enough hours in the day, that's all.
This is true. Well, I mean, recently, was it last weekend? You took off to the woods.
No, just wandered out in the middle of nothing for
did some car camping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was.
You found that you said that was something you would like to do more of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that is also to a T escapist, literally.
It is, but I think that it's
Not that
also
that's
grounding.
Bad.
No, and I don't think
it's just a flavor.
It's called escapism because you're moving away from the problem. But I feel like just changing your environment is a positive self-care tool.
Right.
Yeah. Max, what about you? What do you wish that you did more of in terms of emotional self-care?
This summers are tougher for me because there's more to do around here, and this summer has been especially tough with household changes and some other factors.
Yeah.
But I've been away from the lathe and away from the wood shop for months, and I can't really pinpoint why other than Red Dead Revolver. And
wow, going
Red
way
Dead
old
Redemption.
school.
Sorry,
Red Dead Redemption.
So that is, I do need to get back to that because making stuff is like a mind clearer, and the activity of figuring it out is a mind clearer.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah.
We sort of have the play space filled out at this point. I haven't had any big furniture projects.
I mean, I have ideas.
And that for a couple years, that was a really good thing for me because it's that figuring it out part.
Yeah.
There isn't a whole lot of, there is a whole lot of internet instructions for kink furniture, but I don't look at that. I just kind of figure it out as I go along. And that's the part that I enjoy, and the part that is good for my brain is figuring it out.
With a lathe in particular, and I don't know your approach to it, but when I've turned wood on a lathe, what I really, really, really got out of it is that I can't pay attention to something else when I'm doing it. I have to be in that moment.
Yeah, because it's not easy. I've tried. It is not easy.
Yeah, it's real easy to hurt yourself.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
tools go a-flying.
Or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And you also fuck up your wood.
Right, exactly.
Or lose a finger.
Yeah. I've broken many a blank or ruined a thing on that last, if I just take off
that's
this
real
final,
I
just
want to get that,
Yeah.
That little curve isn't quite happening.
And then you dig in and the whole thing is shot.
Yeah.
You have to redesign. Yeah.
Hannah, kind of getting back to just everybody, what do you wish you did more of in terms of emotional self-care?
I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm really good at distinguishing emotional self-care from the other kinds that we've talked about.
So think of it in terms of what just makes you feel better. Think about reactive stuff. That's okay to list in here too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely I've moved steadily in my life sort of away from having concrete, tangible results of my work. And so that's something I definitely want to refocus on as I'm out of school and everything now, so I don't have grades. I don't have artwork.
Oh, we could give you grades.
You could. Yes. I need to find other more tangible measures because otherwise I just sort of get lost in the day-to-day. I'm working all the time and I'm not really sure what I'm accomplishing. And sometimes that's just a checklist, but I think that, getting back into art and tackling projects that are just for me is going to...
Yeah, I think all four of us are creative problem solvers, and we have our own strengths in those areas, but all four of us like to work with our hands and make shit. And we really like to make shit because we like to see that end result of, I have done this thing. I am a project starter and not a project finisher. So I guess that I find it more fulfilling when I finish a project. It's been something nice about this podcast because it gives me something to focus creative energy into. And there's a result at the end, a result that's tangible and that people can experience. And that's been really cool. So thanks for doing this with me. Do you all allow yourselves to cry? I cry all the time. I admit that right now. I readily let myself cry. I can't hold it back. I'm not going to hold it back. It's a physical release that I need. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
As I get older, I've become such a weird, weepy old man. The weirdest shit makes me cry.
But why is that bad?
I don't know.
It's toxic masculinity.
Yeah, I guess so. But it just doesn't feel like me. I'm not really saying it's bad. It just doesn't feel like me. It's a change in my life that just feels different.
Yeah.
You know? Like,
yeah.
I don't know, why do I cry? Like, why am I not letting you guys see me cry at America's Got Talent sometimes?
Yeah.
Like, why am I having that reaction anyway? It's real weird. And I know it's all getting older body chemicals and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's weird. And I'm not a big fan. I don't like crying. You know, people talk about that it's this release and that it feels good and stuff. It's never felt good for me. It's never physically felt good.
Yeah.
It hurts. It's exhausting. Like, I don't like it. I don't like to cry. I don't understand why it's good for other people.
I like crying. I mean, I don't like crying. It's not like I want to cry and such, but if I do cry, it does help me burn through the adrenaline of the upset faster and get to a more relaxed state. It's like, okay, I've cried and now I'm finished crying and therefore I'm done with that uncomfortable feeling. And usually I'm sleepy after I cry. And
I don't know. Maybe I do it wrong then. No, I usually there's never crying from being upset about something.
You cry about happiness and joy.
Yeah, it's usually a joyful thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think you and I both have. You and I both experience that reaction to things that we find to be very beautiful.
I bet you I could do it right now.
Oh.
What are you thinking about?
Oh, it's gonna show.
Oh no! He's putting on the sunglasses.
No, I won't even need to do it. But
don't put on the sunglasses. They make me so happy.
Yes.
What is it that we called my You called that something. It's my artistic response. You gave it a name when we were at that party. A case of the. It was when we were talking about baby vape.
Yeah, well, I don't remember.
Vape, the vape for babies, our new sponsor.
Baby vape to do. No, remember when I...
Yeah, I don't remember what I coined it as, but there's definitely a face that you make when things are small.
Yeah, that's autistic stuff. Is when things are adorable, I get so emotional about them. Or when I think about...
Very high-pitched.
Or when I think about Oliver being a little train conductor.
What?
Why would you think about that?
Because
of my new overalls. It's brought to mind.
That's pretty great, yeah.
Visit the Instagram, Cult with a B.
Cult with a V. Yeah, Cult with a V on our Instagram. Yeah, and actually check us out on all the social meteors. We have Facebook. It's at Pod Pod Cvlt Cast, which is also our Twitter, at Pod Pod Cvlt Cast. We have a Tumblr, at Pod Pod Cvlt Cast. You can email us, thepod at podpodcvlcast.com. We have all the social meteors. We will soon, I'm working on getting us on Pandora right now, but we're on most of your favorite, providers of podcasts. Yeah, podcatchers. And I'm working on our YouTube right now to make sure that our podcasts can upload into YouTube, because you can, listen to podcasts through an RSS feed on YouTube. So if you don't like using anything else, it's available to you. That'll be coming this week. Okay, so I just want to read a list of some of these things, because some of these things under psychological self-care, I just find amusing to say out loud. So, make time for self-reflection. Write in a journal. Read literature unrelated to work. Practice receiving from others. Ooh, that's a hard one for me. Be curious. Spend time outdoors. Engage your intelligence in a new area. Do something at which you are a beginner. I think those are interesting self-care things.
Woo-woo yoga poster.
Yeah, it feels like that. And
I was thinking that's a lot of stuff that I just kind of am already anyway.
Well, I find a lot of value in these things.
I guess that makes me woo-woo.
I'm very woo-woo. Receiving has been a thing that is very difficult for me. I didn't even realize it was so difficult for me but as somebody who comes from a background that made me a people pleaser, being able to accept things from other people is so hard, because I feel like I'm inconveniencing them. So being able to receive and take the gifts that other people want to give me joyfully has been something that it's been the past, almost 2 years, And I think that really came about with my relationship with you, Eric. So thank you.
Well, that's funny because I'm the same way.
Well, high five.
No, I mean that I have trouble with accepting things from people.
Yeah, you're a pleaser too. Yeah. We're all givers here. Okay, so those things fall under sort of emotional and psychological self-care. I think emotion and psychology are the same thing. I know that feelings aren't who we are, but I think that managing our feelings is part of healthy psychological stuff. I'd like to move on to spiritual self-care. I think this will be a really interesting area. And we've already talked about our religious backgrounds on the podcast. I think we talked about them in Hannah's episode. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is episode 3. And so how often do you make time for prayer, meditation, and reflection? Or reflection, I should say.
All the time? In the sense that, well, a lot of what we're talking about with self-care has to do with self-awareness, and you can't be self-aware without reflection.
Right.
So,
but are you actively reflecting all the time?
Very often.
Well, and you and I
that's also
are mindfulness practitioners.
What do you mean by reflection? Though, do you want to narrow that down at all?
It's just my self-reflection, reflection where you're not doing other things, and it's not an anxiety checklist. It's more of a like thinking about the world and my place in it. That kind of reflection, big time reflection.
Yeah, that's all the time
for me too. I'm the same way. Yeah.
And meditation and reflection are not really directly linked in my mind, but they're kissing cousins.
Gross. Max, what about you? Do you take time for prayer or meditation or self-reflection?
My actual spiritual practice is I'm way out of habit.
Yeah.
There have been long periods in the last, 10 or 12 years, I guess, 12 years, where, I've prayed the daily office, or specific times a day if I'm not actually doing the Anglican daily office.
Well, you have the Anglican prayer beads too.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
I keep a small rosary in my truck, and I do a little, touching each bead, saying a little recitation prayer from time to time. But that has gotten to be more of like a again, emptying the mind, like meditative habit than an actual spiritual practice.
Yeah.
It is something I think about a lot, and I feel guilty about like being out of habit with my prayer life.
Is that something that you'd like to work on being more engaged with?
Yes. Yeah.
So, I think we've identified some things we'd like to do more of. Eric, you want to get outdoors more and go kind of fuck off a little bit more. Max, you want to work with your hands a little bit more and engage with some prayer. Mm-hmm. Hannah, what about you? Do you make time for prayer and meditation or meditation?
I do. It's not super consistent, and I'm trying to work out of sort of a reflexive habit of prayer that's reacting to something that I'm uncomfortable with and move it towards something that's tricky.
It is tricky. So I have I don't really know how to define it other than love-hate. I have a love-hate relationship with my concept of God. And I after my mom died, I was too angry with God to pray. And then my best friend from childhood, Grace, and her wife were up here, and they suggested a book, How to Pray When You're Pissed at God. And I'll link it in the show notes. But in the conversation I had with them, I remember we had it, and we were sitting in our parlor or our music room or whatever the fuck we call that room, the room with the fancy furniture. We were sitting in there, and we were talking about the link between prayer and meditation and witchcraft, spell work, and that they're all really the same thing. It's really just sitting down with an intention and thinking about it. And I hadn't really thought about it in that way. And that was really helpful to me because I felt like this spiritual blockage. Like I wasn't doing anything in my spiritual life, and I was just mad all the time. But that allowed me to start working on my meditative practice. And now I have a self-reflection period pretty much every day. I have an app. It's a recovery app. And, so I go through and I, ask myself if I was resentful and if I was selfish, and I try to make notes about what I've been doing, what I could do better at the next day and things like that. And, so I meditate a couple of times a day. I have a habit of when I wake up and before I go to sleep, trying to clear my mind, because I do have a history with nightmares and things like that. And I find that if I just spend that time to kind of be with myself and be present in the body, that it's helpful to me. I do a lot of the body scans and things like that. And I listen to so much self-hypnosis stuff. Thank God for YouTube. So much self-hypnosis stuff on YouTube and guided meditation things on YouTube, which are really great. I like The Honest Guys, and then Michael Seeley. There are a couple of people that are just, I really enjoy their videos. I just listen to them. It's nice. How often do you spend time in nature, everybody?
Not enough. I live in the city and often will not leave the city at all for days and days at a time.
But when you're cycling, you're by trees.
Sure.
Adjacent.
You're tree adjacent.
I mean, depends on also if it's like just a short ride. I don't even really leave the city then.
Yeah.
I would not enough that I consider it being out in nature.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
Still on pavement.
Still on pavement. Okay, that's fair. Hannah, what about you? Do you spend any time in nature? We've been sitting on the porch. That's outside.
Yeah, and that's been really good. That's something I haven't had in a while. Because I crave that, and I forget that that's a thing that I need.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I really love, I have a kind of a porch bed set up. I love porch bed. I'll go out there and sit for hours. One, my allergies aren't kicking up. And I have a hammock. I like my hammock time too. It's getting on to hammock season. Max, what about you? I mean, you're outside every day.
Yeah, I'm outside for work. But I'm not an outdoors person. No. I don't spend time in nature, in the woods and what have you. The yard or the job site is as close as I get, because I've never been an outdoors person.
Well, outdoor job sites will take it out of you anyway. I used to work in residential construction. I wanted nothing to do with anything that wasn't sitting in air conditioning when I wasn't working.
Yeah, exactly that.
How open would y'all consider yourselves to mystery and not knowing things? I love the expressions on everybody's faces now.
I don't know. I like figuring stuff out.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I enjoy figuring something out, but I
I like a good puzzle. I'm
just
not too
accepting
keen on a good
not
mystery.
knowing something. Accepting not knowing something is sometimes difficult for me.
Whereas Chaston, you were really troubled by not knowing something.
I hate not knowing things. It is a strong source of anxiety. I need to know all the things about everybody all the time. Yeah. I keep this mental dossier, if not written down somewhere. I used to keep actual files on people.
That's really creepy.
I'm sorry, I'm a creep. It's not in a stalkery way, just in a these are things.
Didn't say anything about stalking. Yeah.
These are things creepy. I need to know about people. If I get a fact about somebody, I go oh, there's a fact. And I take it and I pull it out of the air and I put it in my little heart and I keep it there forever. And that's a thing I know because I love knowledge and I just want to know all the things. And you enjoy
saying, this is a thing I know about you.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that you, because that's me connecting with other human beings. Yeah. I can't remember names, but I can remember that people like jalapenos. I don't know. It's weird. And I also like going, but this is not, what you're doing right now is not part of your usual pattern. And I see that your usual pattern is different and that upsets me. So what do I need to do to fix your usual pattern? How do I get you back to normal operating?
Back in your orbit?
Yeah. How often do you express gratitude? Something I love about our family is we always say thank you for the little things. Thank you for doing dishes. Thank you for letting the dog out. Thank you. I
don't do it enough.
Yeah, we always start dinner by thanking each other for our part in making or procuring or preparing dinner. It's something I like a lot.
Yeah. You thank me a lot, Eric. You thank me. Something you pointed out to me early in our dating, whatever, is you said that you appreciated that I was appreciative, that I said thank you for things. So, why? Why was that a thing that's different for you?
I don't know. It's a weird anxiety thing.
Yeah.
It's just hard to say sometimes.
Yeah.
Whether I have a gratitude or not.
Yeah. Expressing gratitude.
Usually the gratitude is there, but the expression of it is what's weird to me.
I get that.
I don't.
No, I understand it because you're not an I love you sayer. I say I love you all the time, but you're not an I love you sayer. That's something That's a thing that you don't express. But there are times when I can tell you're appreciative of things, but you don't have to say it. It just doesn't, you're not a verbal communicator.
Right.
So welcome to the podcast.
Yeah.
I have really taken to heart the idea that when I'm expressing an apology, oh, sorry I'm late, or whatever the case may be, sorry to have inconvenienced you, those are moments that can need to be substituted with gratitude.
Yes.
Thanks for waiting on me. And I'm trying to put that into practice. A goal of mine is to be better at executing that at work, to say thank you more often and sorry a lot less often.
Sorry, I had a burp. Hang on. Thank you for being patient with my burp. It won't come out. Excuse me.
I think that got picked up.
It did.
I don't want to miss out on opportunities to bring positivity into a space and, instead of negativity.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is a flaw in me, instead of, hey, this is a really cool thing that you did for me or accepted about me or made space for. That
one was a really important thing. My anxiety, and this is I know a challenging thing for you, Max. My anxiety is, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry that I've messed up. I'm sorry I've upset you. I'm sorry I've done anything wrong. I'm sorry I exist. I'm sorry. That's my anxiety. So I try really hard to replace that with thank you. Right. And I do when I'm feeling great, I do that well. When I'm not, when I'm in the midst of that anxiety, it's really hard for me to remember to do.
The linking thanks and apology, those are they're both difficult in the same kind of way for me.
Mm-hmm. You're just not emotionally expressive.
Just not verbally.
No.
I think that's a lot of where that comes from. Is that a lot of people don't see the cues.
Yes. I think that a lot of the ways in which you are emotionally expressive are you have a lot of empathy and you are really great at, when I'm expressing anxiety, you are really great at making me laugh and making me feel better. Max, same thing. You're good at making me laugh. And that's very valuable to me. And that's actually one of the things listed here for spiritual self-care is finding things that make you laugh. Because that's a different kind of release than crying. Both of you are good at that. But you also send me things that are meaningful to you or that you're listening to that you like. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's how it shows up.
Yeah.
And
I recognize
other
that.
people are like, you just listen to weird shit.
No, I appreciate who you are.
I think that some of those verbal expressions tend to be tied up sort of inextricably with anxiety in our minds.
Yes.
And I've definitely been in relationships where saying I love you was scary because it came with an expectation.
Yes.
And saying I'm sorry was scary because it came with an expectation of reassurance.
Yes.
And so those are the things that I'm trying to let go of. And, if I express gratitude, then that doesn't put any bonds on the other person.
Yes.
I'm not putting that out there in the hopes that they will build me up. I'm choosing to build up.
Yeah. That's a really good point. If you don't mind, I would like to take a sidetrack here and talk about the expression of I love you, because I think this is a thing that comes up in polyamorous relationships. Mm-hmm. I think that Max, you and I have often talked about the fact that in polyamorous relationships, it's almost like you're fast tracked towards I love you. Yes. That people tend to try and speed that up. Max, you and I did not exchange I love yous. You and I said I like you. Mm-hmm. For a very long time. I'm fond of you. Right. And I don't remember when we started saying I love you. Mm-hmm. It just started happening at one point. But I'm pretty sure it was around the time we got married.
Oh no.
Was it before that? Yeah. Was it when we moved in together? I don't know. It was, I think it was after we were spending more family time together with you, with my son and all three of us. But with Eric, I think I said I love you about 6 months in and you said thank you. And I appreciated that you acknowledged that I was expressing a feeling and that you also were firm in your boundary of, you said, I don't know that I'm ready for that. Thank you, but thank you. And that was very meaningful to me because I think saying, like Hannah said, saying I love you comes with anxiety because I don't want the other person to feel like I expect them to say it because then it doesn't mean anything. I want somebody to say I love you when they want to. But there are ways that we express love. And I think we'll probably talk about love languages in a full episode because that's its own thing. But there are ways that people express love that isn't I love you. So yeah, like I love you is terrible for me. I have trouble saying it because I do have that same anxiety. Like if I say it, like 1, what if they reject me because of it? 2, what if they expect that they think I expect them to say it back? And I never do. Max, I ask you to say you love me sometimes because sometimes I'm having trouble believing that people love me. And I need to know that a person loves me. But I try to say I love you to all my friends.
Yeah, that's a friendship thing that I've always found a little weird. Not with you, just that anybody does. Like, I'm fond of my friends. I certainly do love my friend. Some of my friends, and
you say I have great affection for. That's what I hear you say frequently.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Huh, okay.
I have great affection. You've said that about Eric. You said I have great affection for him.
Well, blew my cover, dog.
Aww.
Spot. Damn, dog.
Oh man. So that's it. Nobody else has anything. Like,
I had friends who had been dating for a long time, and they had an agreement between the two of them that they weren't. And I thought that was pretty ridiculous at the time. I'm not sure that that's ever how I would do it, right? But reflecting back on that, with some years distance, I can understand that people have boundaries of protection that they put around themselves. They want to know that they're speaking the same language.
Yes.
And if you want to make that something that's extra special and by request, then...
I think I'm a firm believer that if I have a feeling, I should be able to express the feeling, but have no expectations about how the other person is going to react to that feeling, because I only have control over my reactions. I think that we should express love and affection for the people that we care about, because I think that all of us need to hear it. All of us, we all deserve to be loved, but we are not owed love. Love is a gift. So I try to, I have a loving heart and I try to spread it around. But the flip side. Yeah, you do. Oh. Now I feel small. So we're just going to move on. All right. Moving along.
If you're enjoying the Pod Pod Cvlt Cast, check out our podcast show notes at podpodcvlcast.com, or keep up with us on Twitter, Tumblr, and Facebook at Pod Pod Cvlt Cast, and Instagram at Cult with a V. Love us, rate us on Apple Podcasts, or help us continue to make this podcast possible by becoming a patron. Head to patreon.com/podpodcvltcast. Remember, that's Cult with a V. Patrons get access to exclusive content like our Cultcast Media Club. This month, we're talking about Paris is Burning, the Vagina Bible, and the musician Lizzo. Thank you so much to our patrons, Jenny, Sydney, and Kate.
Do you take time to nurture others?
That's half my job.
Not babysit others, nurture.
Oh, sorry. Okay, well, no.
Okay. You nurture me?
I'm kidding.
Gosh. Max, do you nurture people? Do you nurture others?
With you two?
You mean Hannah and
Living
I?
in this house.
Yeah.
With you two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you nurture? What do you talk to us? Talk to us about it.
Isn't this a question for you to answer? Because if I say I nurture you for this and this and this,
no,
that's
presumptive
behavior.
That's not presumptive.
You might not find that nurturing.
Maybe there are ways in which you are trying to express nurturing that I'm not identifying. I would love to hear how you nurture me. This is not a test.
Tap out.
Oh, God.
This is a question that we got, though, isn't it? About how we nurture individual relationships.
This is a question. We got another question from Jenny, and let me just go ahead and we're going to break into this one. Gosh darn it. I have to find it. So talk amongst yourselves.
I'm getting for
nurture one another.
It's like butter.
Oh, no.
Okay. That's about dinner.
We've been talking about a day and a half so far.
Wait a minute. Was this question posted in the group?
No, this is another one. How do you nurture your relationships, like metamours, partners, the entire group, friends? How do you nurture people?
Usually with terrible jokes.
I nurture people with food.
That's
I like
true.
to feed people.
It's a very physical, actual
Yes,
nurturing.
you sustain us with food.
I like to sustain y'all. Okay. That's it. That's all we got? Okay.
Somebody else jump in. Come on.
Eric nurtures me by wearing silly sunglasses. And I get to see his bicycle shorts later. I'm excited. Okay. All right. Let's talk about workplace and professional care. Then that's the last little category. How often do you take time to eat lunch with coworkers?
Never. I usually take a nap instead of lunch.
Okay.
However, if I were to go back a ways to...
I can't look at you. I'm sorry. You're going to have to take them off. And we're not going to get anywhere. We need to wrap this episode up, so we're not going to get anywhere.
Well, that's why I put them on.
Thank you.
Okay. The sunglasses are my version of the hook.
Oh.
No, but what was earlier said about the masculine nature of construction sites and blah, 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 and it's not really, self-care is not really a thing and all that sort of thing. In that sense, I'm kind of the weird guy in the shop that other people are noticing, oh, wait, he drinks like these weird teas and he eats this stuff that's all strange and I don't really know about it, but...
Turkey jerky.
Sometimes.
Kale chips.
Kale chips. Pistachios. Quick bars. No, but
not sponsored.
All of these things that I do just because that's my normal everyday stuff. Other people that have no exposure to this at all are starting to pay attention to that and being like, oh, well, it doesn't have to be just I'm a hard ass and I eat McDonald's for lunch or whatever.
The mark of a hard ass.
Yes.
McDonald's for lunch.
Hey, if you can eat McDonald's for lunch every day,
not sponsored.
you're kind of a hard ass, or at least you're kind of a hardened arteries ass.
Yeah, if we're talking about specifically about blue collar kind of stuff, construction kind of stuff, what have you, like it's always kind of baffled me that dudes do eat lunch together because we're standing 3 feet apart from each other all day long.
Yeah.
Just talking about, sports or whatever, what we're going to do when we win the lottery. Like, I sit in my truck and read or scan through my phone or talk to you two to get away from it for a few minutes.
Exactly. So do
and
I.
to get a little, like, reset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have coworkers, so I don't. Hannah, what about you?
You got the pod dog.
I do. I eat lunch with Oliver every day.
I've recently transitioned jobs, and it's made a huge difference in this area in particular because before I was sitting with a group of close friends and we were going out almost every day. Mm-hmm. And now kind of overnight, I'm like by myself in my own office eating a sandwich in there. And so, for the past few weeks, that's been awesome because I was kind of worn out from being with, really intensely with the same group of people all of the time with no break. And now I'm trying to find that balance again, where I still feel connected. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely something that I want to work towards. But honestly, usually by the time I get to lunch, I need my own space.
Yeah, we're all introverts.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for the extroverts listening, we're sorry, but we don't want to talk to anybody. Well, Hannah, I'm going to direct this one to you first. Setting limits with clients and colleagues. And the reason I'm going to direct this with you first is because you have talked a lot about doing boundary work. And recently this week, you have worked a lot of hours. You've worked long hours this week. Yeah. And it's been mostly getting caught up with coworkers. So how are you setting boundaries with coworkers at work? Or are you? Is this an area of growth for you?
It is an area of growth. Like I said, things just changed for me, and I felt the need to constantly be on call so that everybody knows, fulfilling my responsibilities. And my team just grew too, so I'm creating some new relationships. So I think that time's been really worthwhile, but y'all have probably noticed I'm really tired and kind of grumpy. Yeah. And now, folks in my workplace are also starting to notice that I'm not cheerful like I usually am. So, one of my resolutions this week is to protect my time a little bit better. That does mean for me not going out to lunch every day. It also means, calling it quits before I'm completely exhausted, because when I'm completely exhausted is not a time when I can make good decisions for myself. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be more sustainable for the long. But like you were mentioning, because I'm connected by all of these devices all the time.
Right.
I can't just close the door and leave and it be over. I have to also continually make the choice not to pick up that phone, not to check that email address, and just let it rest until Monday. And I'm not good at that because my anxiety makes me want to check all the things.
Yeah.
Because if I feel like something's wrong, those are all the places where something might be going wrong that would validate that feeling. And then I can feel like I'm addressing the problem. Problem is with me.
I have learned with you that 9 times out of 10 that just feeding you makes you feel better.
That's true.
I'm constantly asking you if you've eaten.
Sad but true. I just need to eat.
Hannah's just hungry.
I don't see anything wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that. Feeding you helps you too.
Yeah, quite often.
When Max and I are having troubles, I always bake because I know if I give him chocolate, if I make brownies, I feel like I'm doing something proactive. This is the last question. We can wrap this up. Well, actually, before we do that, Max, I want to ask you about setting limits with clients and colleagues because I know that there are certain things you don't talk about on the job site to protect yourself emotionally.
I don't talk about politics on the job, and I freak out at people who push that. The guys that I work with frequently know that because they know that, they're all Trumpy and I am the super lefty. And they have come accustomed to my absolute insistence that we not talk about, hey, you guys are going to go sit on the back of somebody's tailgate at lunchtime. You guys can trump it up all you want. The job's hard enough. Let's not get mad at each other. Let's just, talk about football or whatever, whatever, hunting, all other subjects that I know nothing about. But I'll ask questions and I'll be engaged about those things. Where if you start talking about politics, I say, no politics on the job. No politics on the job. I had a situation recently where I was working by myself one day. Typically when I'm working by myself, I have my headphones in all day, just listening to podcasts, and an unknown quantity, some guy I'd never seen before, rolled up on the job. And, we had exchanged a little bit of small talk. We talked a little bit about the builder that was doing this particular job. And then he started in on politics stuff. And I said, hey man, I don't talk about politics on the job. Job's hard enough. Let's not get mad at each other. And he goes oh yeah, I get that. That's cool. But anyway, I was saying, I know he, and I said, hey bud, I'm really not the guy to talk to about this because I'm not a fan. So let's just not. Okay. Oh yeah. Cool. I get that. But anyway, I was saying, and I said, hey man, I'm going to put on my headphones and go back to work. And I slowly put on my headphones, looking him dead ass in the eyes, and walked away and went back to work. And the guy stood there like he didn't understand what just happened for a few minutes before he walked away. And I've had several times that I've had to do that exact same thing.
Yeah.
That is a big no line for me, and when I have something to do about it. As far as setting boundaries with clients, text messages is the best thing and the worst thing that's ever happened to construction.
Yeah. Because
it is much easier for me to communicate with clients. It's not as time sensitive as trying to make a phone call, but also they feel free to send you a text message at 11:30 at night about their idea of how to do a thing or a change they want to make, or hey, we were supposed to start this project tomorrow, but actually I think we need to push it off till August. They feel absolutely free to use your time in that way.
Yeah. I mute people. I've gotten into the habit of, if it's somebody who's trying to contact me about something to do with my job, if it's after 4 p.m., which is my stated cutoff time, I don't respond to that unless I feel like it. Yeah. So I mute it, or I just wait till the next day.
Yeah. I mean, I have my business hours are in my head and they're a little spongy.
Yeah.
But if somebody does call at 8 o'clock on a Friday,
that's not getting
other businesses are closed at 8 o'clock on Friday. Just because I'm an individual person,
right,
doesn't mean that I don't get to have off hours too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do want to ask this one more question about workplace stuff, because this is an area where I see all of you struggle. And this is a thing that I struggled to advocate for myself in a professional environment. And that is to negotiate for your needs, such as benefits and pay raises. Max, I know you have money anxiety. Mm-hmm. Eric, I know you have frustrations at work and you typically wait as long as possible to take them up and talk to somebody about them.
Well, it's a right to work state.
Yeah. Hannah, you're Hannah. So, can you guys talk to me a little bit about that? I recognize that I'm the planner and I'm the one who's like, here's the money stuff that's going on and here's what I think. And
yeah, the worst thing in the world about what I do and the individual and independent nature of what I do is naming a price, going out, estimating a job and naming a price. And it brings me such intense anxiety. But then I have to go through it twice, because then at the end of the job, I actually have to talk to the individual client or the builder or whatever it happens to be on that particular job. Mm-hmm. And unfailingly, they say, so what did we agree on? So then, like, I have to enter the negotiation again, and I have no good strategy to deal with any of this. Like, I always end up in a place where I've given a price that I think is fair because I'm working to my own personal ethics. Mm-hmm. If they've agreed to it, I've done the job. We get to that point again, and then I feel so anxious and small about that when they get to that, so what do we agree on question? Like, I start backing myself down, and mentally, I'm not saying I ever actually go to this place, but mentally I get to a place where I'm like, well, I just like to get out of the house, so we're good.
Can I make a suggestion? Mm-hmm. Why don't you just, when you go like, okay, here's the price we've discussed, why don't you just send a quick email with a quote? And then when they ask, what did we discuss? Say, okay, let me pull up the estimate that we discussed. And then it's something that they saw in writing, and that holds them more accountable to knowing what their what's going on.
Is the way that it should be done. And as a contractor, you should have a contract. Very few people that do what I do actually do that.
Well, I mean, but it would take 2 seconds on your phone. That might help reduce that anxiety, because then it's like, well, okay, it's like, well, let me pull up the email I sent you. You're putting it back on them as opposed to having to own that. So that's just a suggestion. Okay.
I just work for other people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Max would prefer to work for other people.
Yeah, I did. I exclusively did for 15 years. And at this point, I think I need to go back to that, really.
Well, so Max owns his own business. Hannah works for a company. Eric works for a company, and I do my thing, and I work for myself. So I love working for myself because I can structure my day. I have flexibility. I can work around my medical stuff or with my medical stuff. But past that, like, I do lack a little bit of structure. I do sometimes wish that somebody was telling me where to be when. But I build my life around my own structure. I've built that structure into my life for myself. Max, you would prefer to have somebody telling you what to do?
It's a mixed bag. Mm-hmm. The part that I just talked about is the part that I don't like. It's exclusively the part that I don't like. Having someone you're responsible to, that you show up at a time, you do a job, you go home at a time, and you pick up a check at the end of the week. Mm-hmm. That's really easy. Mm-hmm. But the flexibility and the being able to structure my time and that kind of stuff, that's the good part. And that's when I'm happy. Yeah. That's when I'm enjoying what I'm doing.
Good. Yeah. Eric, what about you?
Well, I would agree with that. It's only the ease of it that I like. Everything else about working for someone else sucks.
Hannah, what do you think
about
working? Working. Like, do you work better in an environment where there's a structure, where you have somebody you report to, or do you work better when you can just shut your door and be by yourself?
I definitely prefer being able to work on my own schedule and have peace and quiet. I do think that structure has been good. Mm-hmm. And I think that, even though, like we were mentioning before, boundaries aren't perfect right now, and I'm working on that. Having an office that I go to and then I come home from has been really good because, initially when I was first going to school, my plans were different. And sometimes I still think, oh, wouldn't it be nice if I could work from home, if I could always be on my own schedule? It would. But I don't know that it would. I think it would be really difficult for me to separate.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Okay. So. All right. Well, okay. So let's put a quick pin in it, as Max says. Max, 2 things you would like to do more of to engage in self-care for yourself. Be kind to yourself.
As usual, I'm not going to fully answer your question. I'm going to answer kind of a different question.
That's fine.
I'm not going to give you 2 things. I'm going to give you like one greater thing.
Okay.
I talked earlier about my entire personality and the way I've lived since I was a child being reactive. And my growth area would be to learn to be proactive and do those things up front. So I am not responding and like self-comforting when stuff feels bad.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. Hannah, what about you? 2 things that you want to do more of to be nice to yourself.
I want to make things more often and with less pressure put on myself. And I would like to be in nature more. I think that's something we've all, except for Max.
Max hates nature.
Which is fine.
Yes, I do.
But yeah, that's been something that's really been important to me in the past.
Awesome. Eric?
Yeah, those things.
Those things? Make stuff and be in nature?
Well, no, I mean, I kind of already do those a little bit.
Be more proactive? What things?
Maybe redefine some of these things. Like, at the very beginning, you were talking about self-care versus maintenance and proactive versus reactive. And that's actually not at all how I look at it.
Okay, how do you look at it?
In the sense that self-care is the maintenance.
Well, yeah, I get
And past that, what you're using the word coping for is repair.
Okay.
So I'm looking at it in a much more machinist.
Okay, Robert Persing, we've all read The Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Which we will link in the show notes now.
I haven't read that, though. I don't know what you're talking about. No,
that was the Zen of...
The Zen and The Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
No, there's an episode of the Freakonomics podcast that hit home for me a lot, and it's called In Praise of Maintenance. And a lot of what they talk about in there is just basically just being on top of the day-to-day things so that you don't get swamped, so that you don't end up going towards repair or replacement and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to be a little better at that.
Yeah, okay, I can do that. Yeah, I need to keep working on receiving because that's really hard. Asking for help is a big challenge for me, and it's something that's really, really very important because there are things that I can't do. I have some physical limitations with my disability. So I need to be better about just accepting the help when it's there. And that's all I really got this week. Thank you to our Patreon supporters, Kate, Sydney, and Jenny. Thank you to everybody who is listening and giving us great feedback and asking great questions. We really appreciate you. So bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
You've just heard the Pod Pod Cvlt Cast with your hosts Max, Hannah, Chasten, and Eric. Our theme music is Spencer Blues by Lobo Loco. Our break music is Gabberino from YouTube. Subscribe and review on iTunes or check us out on your favorite player. Visit our website at www.podpodcvlcast.com to find all of our show notes and follow us on social media. Thank you so much for listening.